Bienvenidos, bienvenidas. We are celebrating my birthday in Bohemia, and we're taking you along for the journey. Very excited to be here in the central heart of Europe. And as always, we like to begin at the very beginning, or at least at the beginning of what we know to be the beginning of human history. And that would be, not far from where we are today, the finding of a shaman. She was very finely dressed. She had an Arctic fox in her arms. She had a crown of ochre-colored conch shells, which is amazing because we're completely landlocked here. There is no water near us other than small rivers. So how could this happen? Very ancient trade routes through this area, and the importance of women as leaders spiritually in these ancient tribes. 30,000 years ago, this woman was buried very close to here. So that's the first that we know of, the beginning of human history in this central part of Europe that we now call Czechia, that has been called Monrovia, Bohemia, many names, and we'll talk about them. So in the heart of Europe are, of course, the people called the Slavs. And the first Slav grouping or republic was Monrovia. We're talking about 830. Really interesting because the Slavs were, of course, pagan. They were polytheistic and thought about everything in nature around them as representing a greater being, as many traditional societies were. So we get to about 863 and you have the first missionaries arrive. Again, fascinating because they're going to come from the East. They're going to come from the Orthodox Church, and they're going to not simply try and evangelize, they are going to write the first Slavic translate. They're going to translate the Bible into Slavic, but first they have to write an alphabet. So they write the first Slavic alphabet. Fascinating. So you have a people for the first time being able to represent their history in written form after that, after about 863, when those first two missionaries arrive. So in these very dense forests inhabited by the Slavic tribes, you have this alphabet arise from the inspiration of these Byzantine monks, and the Cyrillic alphabet that is today used in Russia, in the Ukraine, and in the different Slavic nations is derived from that original alphabet. Fascinating when you think about how these monks were able to influence then the rest of human history in terms of reading and writing in this area. So as this area becomes more known and slowly there is silver found in the area, all of a sudden everybody wants this area. So you have a development of what is called Greater Monrovia, and really what we're talking about is the Germanic tribes taking over. And again, there are so many people that want this area. At one point, you have the Persians coming up, you have the Ottomans coming, you have the Russians coming. You've got people coming from all over wanting the silver of this area. And of course, the timber as well. So if there is one word to acknowledge the history of the people here, it is resilience. They have withstood, through the history of time, invasions beyond our imagination. This glory was short-lived. By the 900s, you have the Magyar invasion. The Magyars are the Hungarians. And so as they invade and take over these lands, then you have arising what would be called the Kingdom of Bohemia. And Bohemia is so interesting because we identify so much with that. We identify, for example, it is the French who will take the term and use it for people who are living alternative lifestyles. They'll call them Bohemians because, of course, they see the people from the East so very, very exotic from the Parisian strictures of the time, as you can imagine. So the word Bohemian and everything we associate with that originally comes from this area, as this was called first the Duchy and then the Kingdom of Bohemia. It is during the 10th century, during the Bohemian kingdom, the center of power, the capital of this new kingdom, is established in Prague next to the Vltava River. And it's so beautiful, the architecture there. You have architecture literally from that time, from the 12th century on. There are churches and there are town halls. Prague is made up of 4 different original cities, and each one had its own town hall. Fascinating. And of course, you've got a lot of palaces and castles and a lot of church property. So Bohemia quickly becomes an important capital in Europe. It is central to the Habsburg Empire eventually, and becomes part of the Holy Roman Empire as well. Amazing to think that 30% of all European silver is coming from this part of Europe. Holy Roman Empire under Charles IV makes Prague its capital. And he, for example, establishes the first university in all of Central Europe in 1348. He's considered the greatest king of Bohemia. And many, many, many of the buildings that you see in Prague were started by him, including the cathedral, and just amazing, amazing architecture and resources. And all of this is coming from, of course, the silver, that is, the silver mines that are being mined in the area. But people start to question how much the rich, and especially the church, have. And 100 years before Martin Luther's 99 Theses, there was a man by the name of Jan Hus. And Jan Hus says, the church shouldn't be selling indulgences, the church shouldn't escape taxation, the poor are paying far more than they should. Do these themes sound familiar? Well, he was burned at the stake. And what happened then were the Hussite rebellions. There were some Catholic counselors that were thrown out of a window. They escaped, went to Vienna, told the Holy Roman Emperor what was happening, and the 30-year war began. So you've had religious wars here for a long time. Christianity is relatively new. It's 1,200 years old here, and yet there have already been Protestant wars here. And really, in the end, it was the Swedes versus the Spanish using this land, and everybody is ravishing the land. After hundreds of years of foreign domination, finally there's a revival of Czech identity and Czech language. Before the 1800s, the official language in this area was German. But then in the late 1800s, writers start writing in Czech. And in fact, on tour, one of the details that completely just floored me was that our Pablo Neruda is supposed to have taken his name, because that wasn't his real name, that was his pen name, from a very important, well-known Czech poet by the name of Jan Neruda. So Jan Neruda inspires our Pablo Neruda to change his name, to take that as his pen name. That says a lot about how important the Czech culture has been and how it has influenced people literally around the world. So yes, it has beautiful crystal, yes, it has magnificent architecture, but it also has really important literature as well. The world explodes. World War I occurs, and Czechoslovakia, the Czechs and the Slovaks come together to form Czechoslovakia. That wouldn't last, but at that point in time, they wanted to unify in this Central European nation. And so there's a Czech revival, and there's just Prague is an important cultural city. It always has been. It rivaled Paris and Rome, but now it is even more so. The first president, Thomas Masaryk, helped establish one of the strongest democracies in all of Europe. Of course, that all comes crashing down when Sudetenland, this was called Sudetenland for the Germans, was annexed. And you'll recall that that was an attempt to appease the National Socialists so that they wouldn't start another world war. Didn't work, but the reality is that 30% of the population of the area was German, and so they were welcomed by that 30%. It's one of the reasons why there was relatively little destruction during the Second World War. It was actually the Allies, when they were bombing Dresden, which is relatively close, that they bombed some of Prague. But the National Socialists from Germany marched in and did what they did in all cities, but they did not destroy Prague. And so today you can see incredible architecture because of that. So once 1945 comes about, the Second World War ends, you've got the Soviet Union, who has lost the most in that war. 27 million Soviet citizens will die in the Second World War, far more than any other nation. And so they're marching east. And so this area falls into their sphere of influence. And so from 1948, for about 40 years, you may be asking, what happens after 40 years of communist rule? Well, the Czech people said, basta. There's a great wall in Prague called the Lenin Wall for John Lennon, and the young people would shout, you have Lenin and we have Lenin. And so there is so much to see in the Czech Republic. Please let me know down in the comments if you want me to do a separate video of Prague, because there's just too much to try and capture in one video. But I know what you really want to know. I want you to know that after their independence on January 1st, 1993, then the Czech Republic became actually a pretty solid democracy here in Central Europe. But enough of that. How did I celebrate my birthday is what you want to know. Well, my wonderful daughter prepared a day at the public baths. And you say, what are public baths? In Eastern culture, and I'm talking about even Eastern Europe, there are baths and thermal waters, and you take the waters. And so we began with mineral baths and massages and jacuzzis and saunas. And by the end, you feel like you've been literally through the ringer, but it's quite delicious. Everything was wonderful. It was a great birthday, and I thank my daughter for organizing it. There is so much to see here, so much beauty, so much history. It's been a wonderful, wonderful trip and a wonderful way to celebrate a special day. So thank you so much for joining us on this journey. And of course, now on to my favorite part of the video, the book recommendations. There are so many Czech authors and works that are worth reading, but actually if you were to look up 100 best books of all time, both of these books are on the list. Check your local library. I am sure they will have them, your local bookseller, because we want to support our local businesses. The first is, of course, Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis. Imagine waking up and you're a fly. So that's the story. He takes what we consider magical realism to a whole other level. And it's a classic work. You probably may have read it in your literature classes. If you haven't, it's well worth reading. And of course, the other one is The Unbearable Likeness of Being by Milan Kundera. Another fabulous work in the top 100 considered books of all times. And Milan Kundera has a very light way of having you peer into the lives of 4 different people that are going about their business and having their troubles and problems. And so really good books, solid, absolute world literature top 100. It's not me saying it, it's anywhere you look. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey to the Czech Republic, to Bohemia, and for being part of these past 5 years. It has been an incredible journey, and I'm very appreciative of your being a part of this community. Things change through life, and so my cadence of videos is going to diminish in terms of being maybe perhaps 1 or 2 a month. I'm now the primary caretaker of my magnificent almost 93-year-old mother, and so that is my focus. But I want to say to you that it is not that I don't want to share more with you. I just need to share more with her at this moment in time. But thank you, and as always, con mucho cariño, mucho salud, mucho amor. Gracias.